This is the Amp Hour Podcast. Released October 31st, 2021. Spooky. Episode 564. Pavlovian Cheapskates. Welcome to the Macrofab Engineering Podcast. I am your guest, Chris Gamble.
And we are your hosts, Parker Dolman.
And Stephen Craig.
This is episode 300.
Woo!
Yay! That's
we
great,
made
guys.
it.
Congrats.
Thank you, Chris.
We
Congrats.
did it. This is some kind of a milestone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, numerology and stuff. So that, do you guys hitting 50 a year? I mean, like, so is that 6 years as well, roughly?
Yeah.
I think we're having our 5th anniversary at the beginning of February next year. So 2022's 5th anniversary, I think.
I mean, that doesn't check out with the math, right?
Or is it 6?
Well, 300 divided by 52.
So we average on the Amp Hour, which I think we're going to also be posting this as the Amp Hour. Hello, Amp Hour. We do about 50 a year. You know, like we take a couple off and we do a couple repeats and whatever. So, yeah.
We've recorded once a week continuously for 300 episodes. I've missed 2 out of that because of travel and a work event. But Parker's been here for 300 episodes once a week for 300 weeks. So that's almost 6 years.
Yeah, our first episode was February 12th, 2016.
Wow, yeah. That's great.
There we go.
We're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And people are still listening to
and
us.
still listening and still like it. You guys still like doing it. It's like, well, I think you guys were saying before we started recording, it's like, you know, you just get to, you know, come here, shoot the breeze.
It's a lot of fun. It was one of those things where we started the podcast as just a way to generate content because it's easier to do a podcast than to write a engineering article.
Oh, tell me about it.
I think I have an article that I need to finish, and it's like 2 years old now.
Wow.
And and Steve and I thought that we would get to like maybe episode 25, and then like Chris Church, the other founder of Macrofab, would just like pull the plug.
Yeah.
Like he's like, no, this is dumb. Pull the plug.
No, this is dumb. Well, no, I remember we started and the Amp Hour was already well established. You're on 500 something at this point. I think 563.
This will be 564. Yeah,
this is 564. Yeah, so you were already in the 200s when we started. And I remember looking at that and be like, 200 something episodes. Like we'll never get anywhere near that point.
Yeah.
Time marches on, guys. You know.
Yeah, time marches on.
Yeah,
it's not been kind to me. Well, so it's been 210 episodes since I've been here. What's been the happy haps? What's been going on?
Well, let's just ignore like the last year and a half, right?
Okay. All right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's only like 90 episodes. So
that's only like 90 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, it's been crazy at Macrofab. So last year, even during COVID, we were at like 50 some odd employees. We just crossed. I'm gonna check Slack, see how many people we have right now. I think it's like 127 people at Macrofab
so you're
right
definitely
now.
whatever, I forget that number's called, but like that number where you literally can't know everybody's name in a group, and it's like that starts to impact things.
It's about 55.
55 is that's your number. Yeah. No, I think it's 150. It's like Morgan's number or something like that. I don't remember what it is, but
I'm so talking about Macrofab. Like, when we hit about 55 employees, like I couldn't remember everyone's name anymore.
Who is that?
Yeah.
It's even tougher too, like hiring during pandemic times too. And it's just like, people are onboarding because they have to be, and it's just a normal thing that has to happen. And I don't know, first off, it really sucks for the people coming in because it's really hard to like make solid connections with someone and like, I don't know, like feeling comfortable like asking someone for a favor when you haven't met them in person is just tough to do. It's like I don't know what they're like, so you just gotta like force people together otherwise.
It's been interesting because we do manufacturing where I'm at, and we've hired plenty of people throughout COVID times, and we're having a Zoom call in this interview, and we're sitting there saying like we're probably going to see each other maybe once a week, kind of thing. You're going to drive in, pick up parts in a bin, and drive them home, and then if you have questions, we'll talk. And and it's just a completely different paradigm, and in fact, we just hired 2 new people last week or 2 weeks ago actually, and I'm forcing it where it's like we're having a barbecue in the parking lot because the last group of people, the first time they met the owner of the company was at the Christmas party, just because of COVID,
Yeah,
and
totally.
and it was just one of those things. It's like, no, we got to change that.
I mean, there's just some fundamental human things that you just can't get past, and I don't know. Like I think, so like I'm working with some teams that are like overseas even, and I'm just like, when are we gonna? I don't know when the border's gonna open back up, and like when I could see people, and so yeah, you just gotta like force the issue as much as you can. I mean, if you can't have the barbecue in the parking lot, you gotta do something else. I don't know.
Yeah, I've really appreciated that about the owner of my company. He's put a kind of a cap on employees. He doesn't really want to go past 20 employees at the company. We very easily could, but he doesn't want to go past that because he wants to be able to at least know everyone's name, and he puts effort into spending time with all of his employees. He'll go one-on-one with you to go get a beer just to see how you doing, how's everything going, and he just really fears this concept of like, I don't know who my employees are, I just sign their paycheck.
Problem is with staying at 20 employees, if you grow big enough, it's like, well, you've got a 37-hour work day tomorrow, so
trust me, we're all feeling that because like, yeah, the company grows, and sometimes it even grows when you're not even intending it for it to grow.
Totally.
It just does, and it grows, and it's like, oh, okay, so you have 2 options: hire more people or figure out a way to be more efficient, and sometimes both of those are really difficult, and it kind of goes to that whole the idea. I've talked to Parker about this a bunch. We've worked with people in the past who are like, the way they surmounted a problem is they just say, oh, I'll work harder. Yeah. And that doesn't, like, work harder for most people just amounts to I'll put more hours into a thing.
That's exactly what it is, Steven.
Right.
About 2 months from now, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown.
like what always goes through my mind is like someone who's like, oh, I'm working hard. Just like you see them at their desk and they're just like grunting, like this is
steam
hard.
Is coming out of their ears.
Yeah, like what does that even mean? Like it doesn't mean
I do layout so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, don't go over there. Steve is working
They have to call IT department and get a new keyboard because they coded so hard.
Yeah, working hard is just a goofy term, if you ask me, because it just amounts to like somebody being like, well, I'll work overtime. You can only do that.
There is a way of saying it as becoming more efficient at your job is a thing. If you know a little bit of scripting and have some. It's funny,
but in times of stress, though, like the last thing I'm thinking is like efficiency or like figuring things out and like doing things better. It's more just like, oh god, just like I talk about
just get done,
like thrash mode. That's what I always do. It's like when I'm like feeling, it's like like you got your adrenaline's really going. You're just like, oh, I just gotta freaking figure this out. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I tried this. I gotta try it again. Oh, try it again. And it's just, and you get yourself in a hole and
you can't get out.
Yeah, you can't.
I'm going to use that next time when we have a big problem and someone's like, yeah, we just need to work hard. Be like, no, thrash mode. That's
no
what
thrash mode.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things because sometimes where you do have like a little bit of a break and you can like maybe write a little piece of like a script that helps your job out or whatever. Because the worst thing that can happen is you write that script and you never ever use it again.
That's right. Yeah.
So you made all this efficiency and never get to use it again.
That's right. Yeah.
Like the idea of working hard or working extra time in this like thrash mode, I think is actually valuable for like a quick short period of time. Like you could surge and work hard to write that script that makes everything really simple, down the line. But nobody can just withstand like this complete surge of working hard. I'm using air quotes here indefinitely.
Well, I mean, that's the entire thing with past couple years in the video game industry with crunch
Oh, what's that?
It's where
The last month.
well, you say last month, but what was happening with these video game developers was they were in crunch mode for years. And so software developers are working 70, 80 hours of just working hard, right? And then it just explodes. What's interesting though is that's kind of been like the dirty little secret of like the video game industry of developing video games. What's interesting, we're seeing the same kind of thing happening with all industries because of COVID.
Yeah.
Because we have massive layout. People are just saying, fuck it, I'm not even working anymore, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of people quitting, and the great it's the great quitting or something. There's a bunch of fancy articles about it.
Yeah, the great. It's not recession, but it's another R word.
Maybe
resignation. I think it's what they
right.
used.
Yeah. You guys know anyone in your circles doing that? Basically, I haven't heard it in the electronics industry much. I mean, I don't know if it's a.
I've only seen people leave for wage issues.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Because they've looked during COVID brought a lot of introspective thought where you could look back and be like, what am I doing with my life?
And then some of them YOLO.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then it's like, okay, so maybe I really like my job, but it's just not paying the bills, and being at home 24 hours a day is making me really look into that. So maybe I trade a job I really enjoy for a higher pay.
Yeah. Or the some places are moving back to everyone in office, and people really enjoyed the work from home, which for me, I got really, after 6 months of working from home, I was ready to go back to the office. But for some people, they have family, kids, which totally makes sense actually from working from home. Like,
I'm currently in my home office, and I have been very lucky. The house that I've just moved, I don't know if you guys heard that. I'm in Durham, North Carolina now. So I'm very lucky to have an office here. And I was really excited to also join a shared workspace like I did in Chicago. But then I realized it's wait, but all my tools are in the lab. It's I have to have non-hardware days to really make sense to go into the workspace. Even though I want to meet people. I've obviously got a lot. I'm trying to build a new network here, stuff like that. But yeah, it's I'm tied. I'm married to my electronics, guys, and also my wife. So don't tell her I said that about the electronics.
Hey, you got the order wrong there.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so I was in the office all of COVID because I had to. I was considered essential because I was running some of our manufacturing machines there, and since COVID has opened up, I've trained people to do my job, and now I work from home as often as I can, and it's amazing. It's so great. So it's just completely opposite from everyone, but my productivity has gone through the roof because of that.
That's great. Yeah, unbroken time is super important to me, as well. Just to have a 3-hour block of just, but it happens here too. Zoom meetings, whatever. It's just I need to, if I'm doing a layout, I need to be able to do it for a couple hours to get into it and get in that mode, and get in the flow and whatever. If I'm, God forbid, writing code, I need to work myself up to it, get a pack of smokes and really calm myself down, get myself amped up with a pot of coffee, and then
an entire pot.
Yeah, right.
I'd be curious because
coding for
I'm
you,
the same
Chris,
way.
is an emotional roller coaster, isn't it?
That is truer words have never been spoken, Parker.
I'm really curious from our listeners, if you put it up in the Slack channel, if you're the same way. I'm exactly the same way with that, Chris. I can't just get into layout mode for 10 minutes. I have to get into layout mode for half a day. And I've even been known to put a single song on repeat and listen to it over and over and over. And I'm not really listening to the song. It just has me in this layout zone kind of thing. And being at home and being away from, I hate to say this because it's everyone knows what I mean, but this is a little bit mean. But being away from dumb questions, and dumb questions are those things where look, I've asked a bazillion dumb questions in my life, but if somebody doesn't have the ability to just walk into your office and ask that dumb question, they'll find a way to figure it out. It's just if you're the person that can like answer that quickly, they'll just go that route. And trust me, I'm the person that goes that route as well.
Yeah.
But it's I've found that COVID's actually been really fantastic for that. People are so much more self-sufficient because they have to be, not because there's just like someone with the answers one door down.
Well, I feel like that goes in both directions too, because like, organizations have to be, if they're remote first, which many are becoming that way or shifted that way, at least during COVID, it's like, you got to document better. Whereas like before it was like, well, I'll just go ask Steven again. I'll just go ask Steven again. I'll ask Parker again, and it's just like, and now it's like, you guys also have to document the thing so that people can find it later. And it's a little bit more hassle, but I don't know.
No,
Ultimately,
I would say about a third of my job is documentation. And I think my biggest response now is copy pasting links from our documentation to that person.
Yeah, that's the
answers in here.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, answers in there.
Here you go, darling.
I'm honestly really close on thinking about writing a Slack bot that if it finds a sentence towards me with a question mark at the end, it searches that into our knowledge base, and then
that is so
pastes
perfectly
the first URL result.
Yeah. Parker, that is like the most passive aggressive engineer thing you could do.
Yeah.
Because of them, it would just be like me just copy pasting links still.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and then just have
like
a couple canned like, hey, the answer's in this article. Give me another message if you needed more help.
Yeah.
But make like 4 or 5 different revisions of that sentence, and it just randomly picks one.
Bingo. Actually, I'm not a big fan of the program itself, but I am a big fan of the idea. One of the companies I work with uses this thing called Loom, Loom, and basically it's like 5-minute limit, but you can record little videos and like snippets and stuff like that of yourself and whatever. And I really like that for like sharing ideas and like. Basically, it's like having many meetings without having to actually then be like, oh, and what do you think? What do you think? It's like, no, here's just my information. Leave me alone. And, and then you just go off and do your next thing. So that's kind of a cool idea. The software itself is just okay. But the concept is, and actually, I think Slack just stole it. They do it now for like, snippets in Slack as well. So
yeah, there's like huddles too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where like, you can do like a quick hangout, a Google Hangout basically with anyone that's in that Slack channel. Which is, it's kind of nice.
Slack's not my favorite.
Yeah, it's not mine either. I'm actually so we've talked about this before, moving off of Slack and well, not as a company, but as the community for Macrofab Engineering podcast. And going to Discord. Yeah. Because that seems to be like the hotness for
it's okay. Yeah.
Community driven stuff.
There's a lot out there. It's just not that, like, it's just like, how do you pay attention to them,
Exactly.
Well, and if we were
tagged,
if we were to shift right now, we've got 600-700 people in our Slack channel for the podcast. If we were to shift, that would drop to 100, and we'd have to restart. So
yeah.
Totally. That's the only downside.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, let's just go back to Hip Chat.
Hip Chat. Oh, that's classic.
So Dave and I talked about the collab tools last week on the Amp Hour. Have you guys taken any hot takes on collaborative tools? Any what are you doing for layout these days? I guess that's what it was about.
EDA tool stuff.
Yeah, this is around EDA, like collaborative EDA.
Oh, man, I'm still using Eagle, and I'm actually been learning Altium.
Okay, yeah.
Attempting to learn Altium. No, they have some collaboration tools in there. I haven't even touched that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because Altium is out of all the EDA tools I've used, it is completely different than anything else I've ever used before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think it's worked out to be fairly serendipitous because I started using DipTrace back in 2013. And I got proficient at it until I came to this job, which this job uses DipTrace 100%. And I've noticed that what's interesting is in the synthesizer community, DipTrace is kind of a standard. So it just worked out that I was able to plug right in pretty easily with it. So that's been my main. But
Yeah, I like DipTrace. It's nice. I mean, like it's it's very straight ahead. It was always like really straightforward as a platform, I thought.
It doesn't it tries really hard to make the user interface not engineering, and actually I really appreciate that. But we do have some customers that use Altium and some that use Kicad, so I have to kind of bounce around, or Kicad. I'm not sure which way it is. Nope. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Either or, right?
It's an amazing shirt.
Yeah, your shirt doesn't even answer for me.
Yeah. I know at Macro I pretty much have to be at least, I wouldn't say proficient, but I at least navigate pretty much every single EDA tool.
Useful.
Our customers use everything.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. I mean, I think the real question is just like if you were, I don't know how much you guys have to like work with other people on layout stuff. That's the.
Yeah, because that would be more on, like, for me, it's just I get stuff from customers or it's my own design stuff, and I don't really collaborate with other layout engineers.
Well, okay, so we have two main designers at work, myself and the owner, and we both are proficient at DipTrace, and we mainly try not to step on each other's toes. So if there's a project that I'm working on, it is 100% mine unless the owner needs to massage it for whatever reason. Into our system or whatever he's going with, and sometimes he'll kick me stuff over for review. But we've argued it out enough that I have a method and he has a method, and they plug in okay enough that we don't have mistakes. But simple things like I prefer silkscreen on my boards, and he doesn't. In terms of reference designators, I like having reference designators and stuff like that.
I'm not in that camp, but that's just personality at that point, right? I mean, it's
and it's really funny because like the people down the stream in our manufacturing line, without even being told, they can look at a board and know who it came from. Like, of course,
that was I was about to ask is.
But even if they just look at the traces, they could be like, I know who made this board.
Yeah, it's like your handwriting, effectively, right? I mean,
there's a fingerprint.
Yeah. Interesting
for sure. I would love to. I've heard it's out there. I've never experienced it, but I'd love to see a multi-seat concurrent EDA tool where multiple people are working at the same time. I think that would just be chaos.
I feel like that's like engineering porn. That's like what people think that it's that's needed, and it's like that's not how it normally happens. Let me tell you about the birds and the bees.
I was about to say that's like if you pitched that and made that work, you'd get so much VC funding.
Yeah, exactly.
But no engineer would actually use it.
I just think about it at like the so Parker, I'm sure you see this a lot in Macrofab too. Like CAD is so often done at an institutional level. I guess, Steven, you're even just talking about it, right? You went into a company and it's like the CAD stuff is already decided. It was decided 15 years ago and by the pile of designs that are already made. So it's like, all right, so the engineer Bob, who's in the chat here, is talking about like Kicad at home, Altium at work, right? So that's how the split sometimes starts happening. And that makes a lot of sense where, you could, if you're doing your own thing, you're starting from design zero and you get to just go and, use whatever you want, but you just have to use what they use at work. And that might be Altium, it might be Eagle, it might be, God help you, OrCAD. Yeah.
Cadence.
All three of us, you've used OrCAD, right, Chris?
Yeah.
It's
I've used only the schematic capture. I was never allowed to do the layout.
Oh, allowed?
Yeah. Well,
you had to have the dongle, right?
Yeah.
I've Parker and I both dealt with it, and it was a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how any company functions with that piece of software.
The dedicated people. I think that's what it comes down to. Is like it's like another structural thing. You have to have people in and then in there, and then so now you have someone who has a job based on OrCAD. They're probably very proficient at it, right? No doubt about that. You can get stuff done if you need to, right? And then they do, right? I mean, like some of the biggest design houses use it. And then it's like, all right, now we're going to have an engineering review, and should we switch to another thing? And the guy who has OrCAD designer on his business card's like, I vote no.
I had a sales guy spell it out to me one time because I actually purchased OrCAD for a previous company because the engineering manager just said, go buy a copy of OrCAD. So I just did. Mm-hmm. And the sales guy came in after we had it for a month or so. And I looked him straight in the face. I was like, this software is horrible. I used it
He's
in
like,
front of
"Man,
him,
I
and I was like,
know."
why does it do this? Why does it? And he was like, look, let me just be honest with you. He's like, your company, you have one seat of this. He's like,
Yeah,
you're kind of
you
a
are
small fry.
nothing.
He's
Yeah.
like, the old graybeard engineers at this other place that have 50 seats, they're the guys we pay attention to, and all their engineers are in their in their mid to late 60s, and they're the guys, when they say jump, we say how high. And it's just like, oh, good Lord. So, okay, cool. So I'm getting screwed.
Yeah. I mean, that is not limited to EDA either, right? I mean,
Oh, of course.
I mean, every time a past company of mine that was in the test equipment industry talked about taking off a GPIB port, let me tell you, every arm was thrown in the air. Oh my God, we can't get rid of GPIB. It's the needed modern interface that every user wants.
I feel like you have to say
well,
that.
they all have equipment that has it on it. Well, that's because nobody took it off that old equipment, Mike.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I think one of the things it points out to me is just like there is hyper specialization in our industry, right? And people need very specific things, and then you have companies that are servicing these niches, not even niches, but just like these hyper specified. They have this lane, and if you try and go outside that lane, it is really tough. And I feel bad. Sometimes I feel bad disparaging people who are trying something new, which is what I was doing last week. It was a startup who was trying to do something new, and good on them. Honestly, I'm glad that they're trying something new. It's not for me, but there might be other new engineers, right? It really all comes down to what's the eject rate of the graybeards? We need to really just hit that eject button a little more often. How old is your audience, guys? I don't know about my audience. I love the graybeards. I love them.
Well, it's the phrase I really like or sentence, I guess, is tradition, because everyone goes on about traditions.
Tradition.
So OrCAD is like the tradition at a company, right? Well, traditions are just peer pressure from dead people. So
I have not heard that before. That's fantastic.
I like that. Yeah, that's great.
So it's looking at different software. I mean, it's also because I've used 4 different EDA, made boards with 4 different EDA tools over my short career so far. I wish I was better at Kicad than I am. I'm awful at it still. I still can't get my brain around its interface. But I try.
Real quick tangent. I still cannot figure out origins in Kicad. I had to panelize a board and then create a pick and place file for our assembly team, and just trying to tell them where 00 was a headache.
It's top left. it's in the top left. Yeah, no,
it's top left, good. But they don't work in top left.
That's right.
My pick and place team. So it's like, it's
the V6 that's fixed.
But,
is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
When we started Macrofab, I actually was the person who wrote one of the first parsers for Kicad for our platform. And it was because the industry is bottom left, corner of the board is 00. And so that was one of the first things I had to figure out was, okay, where are these numbers coming from Kicad?
Right.
It's top left. And so you have to figure out
it's
what the
top
board
left of the sheet as well.
The
it's
sheet,
not top
yeah. All of my Y's are negative, and they're big, and I don't know why.
And then going in and basically finding where your board is at and all that kind of stuff, and then just doing some
offsets,
math.
Yeah, totally.
Then you can easily figure it out. But it was one of those. That was actually my first introduction to Kicad, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's getting there, guys. It's getting there. Couple more years.
I took a customer's board, and they gave it to us for a DFM, and it was a board assembly, so it was 3 PCBs, and within a day or two, I had them. I had them panelized up. I had all the correct manufacturing files spit out and things like that. But I feel like I was only able to do that because I had knowledge of other EDA tools, and I had done that on other EDA tools. Yeah. If I was doing that from scratch, it would have been like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Because I knew what I needed at the end, so I just had to figure out how to make Kicad do that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I mean, like one thing I get excited about with Kicad in general is like the influx of software people. Like I think that people that have like CI/CD type of stuff, like I'm really interested in that sort of thing, you know. So like at some point if I hit save, that would be really cool that it goes and checks everything on the board and like, you know, all the way through to the export. Like that would be the best case scenario if I, or maybe not save, but you know, I do a commit. And I think there are a lot of people pushing that kind of methodology generally. And then just other Python scripting gurus that are making things capable for me, or possible for me that I am not capable of. So that's also really important.
I think the most exciting thing about KiCad is how fast new features get added to it.
Yeah.
And how quickly it's also, I guess you could, from the OrCAD perspective, it's a bad thing because things change.
Yeah.
But from the other side of the spectrum, it's a great thing because it's rapidly changing and rapidly evolving, and
yeah,
you
I
can
feel like the
iterate
interface
in that.
stuff is that's when things fall apart when people get upset, right? They're like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't want it. Where did my button go? You know, like that's always a
Oh man, so
Yeah,
we had that
that's
happen at Macrofab.
yeah.
Is on the admin side, a button got moved around.
Mm-hmm.
And no one told anyone where the button went. I think that was actually this morning.
April Fools.
Yeah.
Oh,
See, with Dip Trace, they lead you with a carrot, and they'll give you smaller revisions like 3.1, 3.2, and they just keep feeding you those, and then they'll put everything into this beautiful 4.0 package and be like, well, it's $300 to upgrade to 4.0, and it's like, I have to because all of these features are awesome, and we've been asking for years for them.
Yeah. Autodesk, on the other hand, just takes a big bite out of your wallet every month.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, industry, isn't it fun?
Yeah, nothing we've said here is new, right?
No. Well, it's 300 episodes for you guys and 560 for us. I mean, like we're gonna get some repeats on here. One thing I probably didn't bring up last time on episode 90, Development Board Guild. I should go read those notes too. So since the last time we recorded, I started using EFM8 parts. Talk about modern. Guys, let me tell you, an 8051 core.
Yeah, 80. Oh, yeah,
rock and
EFM8.
roll.
What, are you using a Sleepy Bee?
I am not using a Sleepy Bee. I was using
Busy
a Laser
Bee.
Bee.
Laser Bee.
Laser
Okay,
Bee.
yeah.
Oh, top
Yeah,
of the
Laser
line.
Bee. Yeah, well, you know, I wanted the 4 DAX. That's where that came from, and having 4 DAX is pretty important for my scenario. But I know Parker. I think after I first chose it because Ken, no, not Ken. Ken?
What, over at Parallax?
No, not Ken.
No, he would try to get you to do a prop.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Who am I thinking of? $1 microcontroller guy. Sorry.
$1.
Engineer Bob in chat.
Jay Carlson.
So Engineer Bob in chat says the 8051 is the OrCAD of the CPU world.
That is a great comparison.
It is.
Yeah.
Because there's so
And
much.
It will never die.
It'll never
No,
die. There's so
no,
much
will
code
not.
written for that microcontroller core.
Mm-hmm.
That is.
Yeah. So Jay Carlson who wrote the $1 microcontroller, the amazing $1 microcontroller. You guys have surely read that article.
Yes.
He turned me on to that Laserbee part, and I started looking at it, and I needed 4 DAX sometime later, and I was like, oh wow, this hits it. And so, but then I started trying to learn it, and the only things I could find were posts from Parker and posts from Jay. I was like, oh boy, this, you're in a bad spot. It's not quite as bad as when you're doing a Google search and you find your own questions
stuff
that has been unanswered for years. That's also bad. I've done that one before too. Or the blog post you've written on the topic that you have now forgotten many years later. That's also,
Yeah.
I've done that.
We've mentioned this multiple times. You also run into that Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange, whatever. That forum post where somebody posted the problem, and then the very last thing was, "I found a solution," and then they don't say anything.
No
more.
answer.
And that's it. Thanks.
Gone like a fart in the wind. Yeah. So it's been an interesting journey. I think they're going to keep it alive. It's interesting the days of the chip shortage. It's like, yeah, I guess there's a big product line, so it's still kind of around, but it's not getting any better. It's not getting any other features, that's for sure. So yeah, it's interesting to write. Are you still doing stuff with that, Parker, or no?
The FM8? No, the big project I've been working on is, pinball controller stuff, and we're using a AT Mega SAMD.
Okay. So I looked at those. They're just expensive, though. I mean, like, so they have DACs on them, and that's nice.
Yeah, well, when
they're hard to find.
Well, that definitely.
That's everything. That's a microcontroller right now.
Although I'm looking at one of the big players right now, and you can go out and buy an EFM8 right now, and you could buy some of them.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and there is some pin compatibility. You might be downgrading in terms of what you have on board, but yeah.
No, EFM8s are great. The reason why is we picked the SAMD because it actually, for the price point and the features we needed, it was actually really good for it.
Yeah.
And the EFM8s just didn't really have the features that we wanted. I'd rather, right now, be in the EFM8 boat if I could, because you can actually buy them.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It's also like you can buy parallax propellers right now.
Someone's laughing about that all the way to the bank.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, actually, no. My current hardware project I'm working on now, I'm actually using a parallax propeller because I have a tray of them, and I'm only going to build a couple of them.
Nice.
Why not?
What is up with the propeller? I kind of forget it exists, and then sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, cogs are a thing.
Yeah, there's a Prop 2 now.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah,
that finally exists.
Ken and Chip were on this podcast. What I remember,
they came on a while ago. Yeah,
a year and a half ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Was that during COVID or right before it? I can't remember.
Oh, that was before it. Yeah.
I finally got a Prop 2 dev board about a year ago, and it's because now they support like C, because it used to be just Spin and then assembly. Spin's like was their own language, and that was actually the first embedded language I really learned, and I really like it. And then I went on to learn C and then assembly and all that good stuff. Yeah. But now there's C for it, but I actually still find myself writing Spin code because I find it faster to write it that way.
Is it like a scripting language? What is it? I mean, I remember hearing about it.
It's a, if I recall, it's like more like Python where it's runtime.
Okay,
so it's not compiled.
It's colorful. I remember that.
Yeah. Colorful, like actual colors. Like there's like
like
colors?
in their IDE, like it colors everything.
Oh, it's just like your variables are here, and it's just going to make your variable block a different color.
It's actually kind of weird. Growing up, I had a Bible. This is a super weird tangent, but I had a Bible that was like, depending on what was being said, it would color it. So if this is prophecy, it would be this color. If it's Jesus speaking, it would be this color. If it was Satan speaking, it'd be this color. And programming in Spin just makes me think of like, I'm coding prophecy
someone
right now.
Colorblind being like, oh man, this devil says some weird shit, you know?
Yeah.
Love thy neighbor.
Yeah, right. Everything's confusing. Why is it all in gray?
Yeah.
Not to make fun. I'm not making fun of people with color blindness, of course. Just that's interesting.
Yeah,
interesting crossover.
Yeah, that Bible and Spin has a fatal flaw for colorblind people, I guess.
Yeah, it's a real thing for design. Yeah, I mean, like high contrast design is important for color blindness. Yeah,
for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've never tried. I have to say, I don't think I will. I'm a little.
It's an oddity. It's 100% an oddity.
But they're still around. I mean, that's what's weird to me. Like, so are they educational? Are the people designing them to products?
I mean, my first pinball controller, which we built a couple thousand of, it had a parallax propeller on it. It's a really $8
microprocessor.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Well, the new one's $12, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, but the new one is just what it can do is just amazing. Like,
so
on the new one, I think there's like 64 pins, general purpose IO pins, and each one can be a DAC or an ADC.
Yeah.
It's bonk, like the peripherals in that thing is just crazy.
It really is like the anything chip. Like you can,
but you have to code it that way because like
you have to force it. Yeah.
Where like you have like you set up a DAC or like you just set up some registers and then the hardware does its thing. It's actually more kind of like an FPGA in terms of you have to write that stuff in code to make like you turn a cog into a what would be a good
So
example?
it's like block configuration almost. Like you're saying,
Kind of,
this
yeah.
cog is a blank, and then it does this function.
Yeah,
after
it does
that.
this functionality.
Yeah.
But they can do a lot more than that. But that's just a good way to think about it.
You know what one of the big downfalls is? I'm actually looking at it on Mouser right now. A Prop 2 dev board is $130. And that's not like horrible or anything like that. But if you're like a do-it-yourselfer or if you're like a get into entry-level guy, a $130 dev board to just have access to the processor is steep, right?
Well, maybe that begs the question, guys. Is DIY dead? 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 Dead?
Echo. 40 minutes in and we reach our topic.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we got there.
We did it.
I mean, we're kind of circling around it, you know. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's an
Funneling.
interesting. I mean, like around the. I don't know, like. So first off,
So
If
I
I
think
would-
we have
if-
to. I think we have to have our binary answers first.
no,
No,
Maybe.
that's not binary.
I'm analog. What can I say?
Like tertiary.
I'm gonna go with no.
No. No. No, I don't. Yeah, I think it's the reason it came. Why did it come? It came up around like kind of like maker culture stuff like that. We were kind of talking about, but I think that it's kind of never been easier to do DIY stuff. I think it's just more of, is it romanticized as much? I think that is so is the romanticization of DIY dead? I hope so, because oh, you can start your business making 3D printers, like
That's gone.
Yeah. Great. Oh, cool.
Yeah,
It needs to. Right.
Yeah.
It needs to be gone.
it's interesting where I think it depends. I think the mass market ability. This is like looking at Maker Faire, because Maker Faire is gone. Especially, I wish like San Mateo was a lot of fun, but like, I think what happened there is the idea of big companies coming in to sponsor makers, I think, is over. Big
maybe.
companies like Microsoft coming in and
the
sponsor.
Google tent or the Microsoft, the Barnes and Noble tent. That was my favorite. That's when you know that an event is doomed. It's like, our biggest sponsor is Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble. I
Are
remember
you a
when,
maker? Read about it on paper.
yeah, I remember when Autodesk was the premier sponsor at Maker Faire for San Mateo, and that was they had a bonkers booth.
Yeah.
That was when they launched Autodesk 123D, which turned into Fusion.
Oh, interesting.
But so Craft Lab in chat says maybe it's because of COVID and there's no Maker Fairs for people to obsess over trying to show off their hacks.
Well,
It was
okay,
dead
wait.
before COVID though. So
Yeah,
That brings up
Gamel's right.
a problem. Like, are you just making it so you can show it off to people? And at that point, is it just like social media DIY, or are you actually trying to solve something? You know?
I think all things move towards commercialization, right? Any kind of excitement that happens is people are going to be like, oh, I could maybe make that into a business opportunity, and I am not immune to this myself, so I think that what happens then, I think what specifically with Maker Faire and maybe more broadly in the industry is like, people started doing that, and then they're like, I'm a maker, and then they're like, I'm making a maker business. And then they're like, I'm making money off my maker business. And then Maker Faire is like, okay, cool. Now you have to pay us to be here. And they're like, whoa, we're gone. And it's just like, and so.
Not cool, man.
Yeah, not cool. You're not with the ethos of me making money.
Yeah, no, but the interesting thing about that is trying to make money off people who DIY. Because most reason why there's two groups of people who DIY. One, you're doing it to save money, and one, you just enjoy doing it. I would say the group that enjoys DIY just to do it is a lot smaller than the people who do it to save money.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is
assertion.
like, we're talking about DIY. Like, I'm going to fix the plumbing under my sink.
Okay, so you're not saying like, I'm posting my project to Instructables. You're like, I'm
Correct.
just getting it done because
Getting
I
it done.
have to. I'm not hiring a professional.
I'm going to fix my toilet myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to fix like
Right.
that's a DIY project.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I would say that segment is way larger of a segment of the DIY community. And so when you have these,
I wouldn't have put the toilet fixtures in the DIY in my head, it wasn't in that camp, but it's
Okay.
probably because we're talking about Maker Faire already.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what I'm getting at is where pitching to the DIY community, you're trying to pitch to people who don't like to spend a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that more broadly as well. The hardware engineers are cheapskates. I mean, like,
Oh yeah, I mean we were talking
Nice.
about $1
Yeah.
microcontrollers, and we're
Yeah,
like,
right.
man, is that? Can we get a 50-cent microcontroller?
I mean, the thing is, like, there are some very real implications from saving money. I can make more things. I can, I get to
Yeah.
fund, like, and like some like actual like business things too. Like, I can fund my business for longer because I make more margin per board. So, like, being a cheapskate actually leads to my company's longevity.
How many design meetings have you guys been in though, where you're proposing something new and people are just saying like, well, that's going to raise the cost of this by 20 cents, and like the bean counters are going to, beat us with a whip if we add 20 cents to this. So like, yeah, I mean, we're trained
conditioned.
to think about that. Conditioned. Yeah.
Right. We are Pavlovian in our cheapskateness.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, pre-supply chain issue, you would go online, search, I need a 10K 0603, and you would immediately click the sort by price ascending.
That's right. Yeah, I will still do it.
Yeah.
I think
Nowadays you click that in stock button too.
Yeah, there's that, and then it's also like there's also that like mental switch of like, well, I'm not sure I should really, even though they're the cheapest, like getting resistors from Bob's Resistor Shed, like buying some like off-brand who knows what. Then it's like, okay, so maybe if I've been burned enough times, I'll think twice. But yeah, most of the time, sign me up for the cheapest. Yeah. So,
exactly.
I mean, I think that's just how the industry goes, right? I mean, that's also what drives Moore's law, everything else, right? It's not. People aren't doubling their transistor count every 18 months or whatever it's actually doing these days. It's not because it's fun to make things smaller. I have friends in the chip industry. It is a slog. It sucks. And it's like, no, we need to make money and keep up or else we're dead,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, and with component shortages nowadays, I think that kind of cuts a line down
Wait,
down
what?
the middle. Yeah,
Wait,
like
there's
these
shortages?
things, you can't find things. Yeah. So it kind of cores out this middle section of industry, right? You have big players that can throw their weight around and can spin up fabs or convince people to make stuff for them, or you have the really, really small guy that's making 5 of something and can sit there and hunt and find for 5 things on eBay and buy them and make his little project. But in between there, you have this really like, you have the people who are sweating every day saying like, I need 300
supply chain
microcontrollers and I can't find them,
Yeah, I hope I can outsmart someone by buying when DigiKey is like just happens to have the parts on hand in that
Exactly, like-
window.
Yeah.
That happened against me.
Oh yeah,
On SAMD 21s. Yeah.
you got sniped.
Yeah. Someone sent me like, hey, DigiKey's got 2,500 of these. I'm like, perfect. That's a year of production. I'll be good to go. 10 minutes later, I'm on DigiKey's website. Already gone.
Goose egg,
Sailed
yeah.
away.
Oof.
Yeah.
I bet you that box didn't even hit DigiKey's warehouse before it was out the door going again.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes exactly to what you were saying, Chris, with commercialization. Like if you're a DIY guy and you kind of have that idea where it's like, oh, I've got this cool concept for a widget and maybe it can make me some money someday. You're looking at chip shortage and be like, why even try right now to make it into something more? I might as well just make one for my house and that's fun and cool. And there we go.
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be interesting to see what companies make it. I mean, not interesting. It's sad and terrible and everything else. But like, there is going to be a reckoning because of this. Some companies are just gonna maybe not close up shop, but maybe they'll shift their business model, whatever. And it's like, yeah, I don't know many people who are like, I'm really looking to get into dev boards right now. Like, where the money is? $20 breakout boards.
Yep. I haven't looked in a while. Has the technology section on places like Indiegogo and Kickstarter is that significantly different given chip shortages and things, or are we seeing tons
way
of
more
delays?
emails? I get way more marketing emails from them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. I
probably a
I
bad
only really
thing.
follow Crowd Supply. I don't really follow Indiegogo and Kickstarter because of past just.
Burn.
I can't. It's just not. I think it's just lower signal. Like I feel like like Crowd Supply, pretty good. Some stuff I'm just like, okay, come on. but pretty good. Because it's pretty niche. Indiegogo, and Kickstarter, If I had to rate them, Indiegogo is the lowest, and Crowd Supply's the best, I think. So,
well, I'm just wondering if you were to look at the data behind stuff that's available on any of those platforms right now, are you seeing lots of people saying like, "Hey, delays, hey, whatever," or if you were to even see like the back end of people who were interested in opening a new campaign and saying like, "I'm going to hold off," like how much is that seeing? Or we're probably seeing a ton of that.
When we had Chris Kraft on a couple weeks ago, he mentioned that at least on what's the other one? The Kraft website.
The Blue Box Macaroni and Cheese. Is that what you
No, no, it's just an Etsy,
okay.
Etsy and Tindy.
Pinterest. Oh, Tindy. That's
where a lot of people are closing their shops because they just can't get parts.
Yeah, they'll just come back whenever. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sure Tindy's in flux quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the real thing is that people should probably be raising their prices, but I think there's also resistance to that. It's just like, oh, I shouldn't do that. I want to, so like, okay, so now we're back to this DIY ethos, right? I think I want things to be cheap. I think things should be cheap when I sell them. But then it's like, okay, but you're not getting as much margin, so you're not going to stick around. And so it's just like, that's going to hurt. That kind of hurts everyone, I feel like. I feel like you got to raise your prices on a pretty regular basis too. And, I feel like people in the DIY space might be more willing to self-flagellate in the in the business sense of the word, rather than like look like they're gouging customers. It's just like the price increases are just a natural part of, well, other industries at least, maybe not our industry. Usually, I remember there was a FAE I used to work with. He's like, yeah, only industry where every year the parts get cheaper. Same function. Parts are supposed to get cheaper, though. It's like, shit. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
But,
I guess I haven't thought about that. The DIY community, in thinking that the stuff that they should get for cheaper, they should also be able to supply things for cheaper, where that just isn't making sense right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen more than one. We're sorry, we have to raise prices, and it's like, of course you do. Like everybody has to raise. Like that's just a thing that happens. I think 2
to 3% per year is pretty expected.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have, if you just have the inflation cost of assembly services that come through, maybe there's some efficiencies through a macrofab or similar, but there's just going to be price increases. Maybe if you even just have an office, things are going to go up. So I don't know. I feel like that's one of the downsides is that there's just a lot of kind of emotion tied up in it, because we're cheapskates and that sort of thing.
Well, I think I guess I got two things here. So on that gamble is we also look at it as if it was $40, I would just spin my own microcontroller board and spend $25, right, myself, and assemble it myself on my bench.
Yeah.
And so that we get that in our brain and go,
that is the worst. That is always wrong.
It is always wrong, but we always have that mentality.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I can do that cheaper.
Yeah, right, that whole I can do it cheaper, and we're the ones selling the product.
I'll just spend 16 hours on the weekend, and I'll just it's
and
so
done.
cheap.
Yeah, it's so cheap.
Right.
Then I'll build one.
I think
buy everything quantity one.
Yeah. I think I'm finally getting to the point old enough where I'm starting to realize time is important. So figuring that out in projects. But then two is on Steven with I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in inflation, but if you look at the actual inflation for the past 10, 15 years, it's been pretty flat until now.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And so it's been that 2-3%, and then it went to this. It actually sometimes it had dipped down.
Yeah, it dipped down a little bit. Yeah.
And so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but there's a lot of people freaking out over inflation stuff. But it's if you actually draw the linear line from way back then, we're still not even up to it yet.
That's right. Yeah.
Last year dipped really hard, so it looks like it's way worse than it actually is.
I see.
Possibly, but this whole maker commercialization stuff has really maker and DIY has existed for a long time, but it's really become the maker fair and the forefront and being news kind of things. it's really been the last 10 years during that period of
that flattening of stuff.
Flattening.
Well, and I think
now,
one thing that contributes to that too is just like the China ecosystem coming online, growing so huge, right? So like if you really think at like 2000, China was like not a, it was obviously it was a market for low cost assembly, stuff like that, but just like the dominance in the electronics industry and just the flattening of cost, I think because of the volume there and like the, taking over a lot of the assembly that's happening and just like all the things that were there and how that contributed to the low, like just the lower cost of goods overall in the, in certain parts of the world, of course, and we're all in the States. And then how that then played into the maker movement as well, right? So then now people are saying, hey, I, as a individual, I can go and take stuff maybe over to China even and, harvest some of that value as well. And then that starts to go away because, well, other brands are doing the same thing or whatever, and it just gets harder and harder to do that. And the cost of imports started to go up as well. So yeah, that could. I feel like you got an economics paper there, Parker. Maybe you might be halfway to a PhD.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's got to finish his one article that he's writing for 2 years.
That's right.
the last 2 years.
Right. If that maps, then he'll by the time he's in his mid 80s, he might have gotten that PhD.
Yeah, I might get it done. The also think about is when was the first time did you buy a prototype piece, just a bare PCB that was under $100?
That's right. Yeah.
When was it? Like 2006, 7-ish, maybe? That was mine. When I bought a prototype from, it was PCBcart.com, which still exists.
Yeah.
But that was like the first time I ordered a board from China, and it was under $100. And as a college student, I could barely afford that. So,
well,
yeah,
now when a
first
board is
boards
like
were
$10, that's expensive, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think that totally enabled a lot of things, right? I mean, like as someone who's trying to build a board business out of that, or like a assembled PCB business out of that, it's more possible than maybe it would have been back in 2005 or 2000. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the first boards I got were, I think, advanced circuits out of Colorado, which
right down the street from me.
Yeah, just purchased by what's them names, Tempo, and no solder mask, just bare etched PCB, bare ass PCBs,
Yep, I did that because it was the cheapest option. I did it one time, and then I hand soldered it, and there were shorts, and it was not fun.
For days. Yep,
and it was just like, come on, why am I doing this?
Yeah, I did that same exact thing, actually.
Oh, they called it bare bones. That was the option.
Bare bones,
That's right,
yep.
bare bones.
Yeah. That was fun.
That wasn't the first board I bought for. My whole thing was like under a certain price point because I sold. I think those were still over $100.
Yeah, yeah. They were not cheap for what they were.
No.
Yeah.
So I think what would they call it now? Democratization of PCB pricing from China.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, so certain things came out of like if we conflate DIY with like maker culture and just kind of like, I think like digitally enabled stuff too, like being able to, like when we order boards from China, it is not because we're calling China at 7 at night here and at 7 in the morning there. It's because we order online, and when they get in, they just make the stuff and whatever, no big deal.
Yeah.
And but just like that digital front end for services, man, that is sweet. I hope that never ever goes away. I don't want to talk to another goddamn human ever again. And I know we're on Macrofab podcast, so Macrofab doing things right. I don't want to talk to Parker ever again. No, I'm just kidding.
No. When Macrofab first started, I remember that being a selling point where they were like, "You're an engineer, you want to make something, and you want to just input your data. You want to be in control of your data, and you don't want to talk to anyone." Macrofab allows you to be an engineer from start to finish.
Sign me up for that all day long. I don't
it
want
was
to talk
awesome.
to any. I want to talk to people after work, and I think the real thing is I don't want to go back and forth. That's the real thing. I recently ordered laser cut acrylic on Pinocchio, which is been around a long time. It's a very different service than when I last remembered hearing about it, looking at it, whatever. It was so easy that it was just like, I'm an illustrator, 20 minutes later, I've ordered things and then it just shows up. And I was like, oh my God, this is like I don't have to join a makerspace. I don't have to get into the politics of a makerspace to get access to a laser cutter. Like,
do I really have to get training for this machine?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So cool. More of that. Yeah, I want to be around people.
Just the other day, I used the service to order some JST assembled cables. So basically, XH style connectors with wires in between. Effectively, that's it. And I used an online service that allowed me to pick my connectors, pick the colors, pick the length, and just press buy. And they shipped yesterday, and I haven't talked to a single person about it.
And you also didn't have to make a engineering drawing of it. I mean, like,
bingo.
Engineering drawings
I didn't have to do
are
that.
important, but boy, they're a stupid process for like translating. It's like Steven knows he wants this color of wire here. Like, so we have to put it in a PDF to know this? Like, no. Yeah. It's not like you're like specking a brand new color of wire that's going to go all the way back to the plastic manufacturer that then coats, stranded 24 gauge wire or something, like.
No, honestly, I swear engineering drawings, not just PDF, sorry. Engineering drawings have traditionally just been a club that you can beat your manufacturer with when they get it wrong. No, I swear to God, I'm not trying to be like mean about it, but like that's what it is. Like, you didn't follow the drawing. Like,
it's like the bill of sale for like for like your specs,
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And then you get those drawings that are just almost black with text and just so much information that there's no way anyone could read it and actually get it right.
And no one's ever read it. Some engineer made it in like 84, and it gets copy and pasted on each layout page, and no one reads it. So they send
handwritten notes.
But then they send you the actual specifications, and it doesn't match that.
That's right.
You see that all the time, right?
Every single day.
Oh yeah, I've had it called out to me where they're like, you sent in this drawing. This isn't what you ordered. You know that? I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't mean to do that.
I actually, I had some guys just the other day. I'm getting some plastic parts made right now, and so I'm getting them injection molded. Well, they come out of the mold, and plastic shrinks a little bit. So I gave some tolerances for shrinkage allowance on my drawing, but the place was asking, hey, we're seeing X number show up on all the parts that we've manufactured. Would you mind changing the drawing such that the nominal is now the shrink part? I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to put that, because now whenever I leave the company and someone else needs to go and get another mold made, they're now going to make the mold for the new shrunk size, and it's going to shrink again, and you're going to ask them to change the drawing again.
So in 100 years, your part is like
it just keeps getting smaller.
Did you I've mentioned this on the Amp Hour before, but I love the Bobaverse books. Have you guys ever read those, or do you know what they are?
Hold on. Is that the where they put someone's brain in a satellite?
That's right. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically an engineer, he dies, they freeze his brain, they make him into a consciousness. But the whole he goes out to space. No spoilers there, really.
Yeah, he becomes an AI basically.
That's right. Yeah,
for
that's
a satellite.
Good way to think about it. But he always talks about like like in this very, very fictional, although hard science fiction, in this very fictional future, he has access to like matter compilers and that kind of thing. And I feel like that is the ultimate, and that's also like in Diamond Age, if you read Neil Stephenson too, like it's all matter compiler. That's like the ultimate pinnacle for what we're talking about here. It's like, now we're not talking about like color wire. We're talking about like, I'll build that wire myself. Thank you very much. I will get the PVC, and I'll just build it up atom by atom. And
I'm gonna make this Steven Seafoam green colored.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. I mean, we're frankly, even though we're talking about different processes, we're actually not super far away from that in terms of silicon. Like, we're getting close to atomic level transistors where like some of the gates are measured in tens of atoms. Like you're getting close to being like, well, there's not like a different way we can stack all these things, even though we're talking about like a subtractive process in a lot of ways, but yeah.
I mean, this is like additive is like they're saying like atom by atom sort of thing. It's just
right.
I don't think we're gonna get there anytime soon, but Yeah.
Well, I mean, in terms of manipulating the universe, I'm saying we have a process that is on that scale.
On the path you're saying, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That was always one of the weirdest parts about some of my semiconductor physics classes, where we had to deal in angstroms and units that are close to the size of atoms, and it's like we just threw that around on our homework like it was nothing. And I'm like, wait, no, like we're talking about like the smallest of small.
That's right. Yeah. It's like being really zoomed in on a CAD drawing, and you're like, oh, it's no big deal. It's just like, 20 nanometers, no big deal. And you zoom out, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's funny. We have a CNC at work that we have to run a calibration on, and we have a Renishaw ruby tip probe on it that measures down to 1 nanometer. And one of the people I'm training on it, I've given her some specs in terms of when you're calibrating the machine, you should see numbers like this. And she's like, hey, it's reading like 12 nanometers. Is that good or bad? And I'm like, it's 12 nanometers here. Like start thinking about the scale of these things. Like, yes, I've given you parameters for these kinds of things where like 12 is like around the edge of it, but like also stop and think like, what is 12 nanometers, in a manufacturing scale where we're like screwing things together. 12 nanometers is, we're talking fine.
I did see, okay. They already answered on the chat. Someone was asking about the book. So never mind. They figured it out.
They figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think I listened to audiobooks. I couldn't remember what the Bobiverse was. I think maybe I've only listened to the first book. Is there
the first one
books?
is actually called "We Are Legion, We Are Bob."
Yeah,
And
We Are Legion.
The series is called Bobiverse.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's BOBI verse.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not Bob A or Bob O verse.
I really recommend the voice actor on the audiobooks are awesome too.
Yeah, I really liked the first book. So
Yeah. There's 4 now, and he's actually an engineer. Not surprisingly, the author was an engineer and now is a full-time author. So kind of like Andy Weir style. So
How long have these been around for?
5 to 10 years. Not like a ton of time. Not like classic, but yeah.
Very
I
cool.
like him. Yeah.
I'd recommend at least the first one because that's one I have experience with.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Is there anything else we should talk about, guys? We hit an hour here. I don't know how long you're usually recording these days.
Usually about an hour.
Yeah, so
That's our thing. You can't do that.
we're the amp a little bit longer than an hour.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
are we. Yeah.
It was funny about that is when we started this podcast, it was like 15 minutes and we're gonna be done.
Yeah.
And then it kept growing.
I mean, there's so much to say,
Well, I think in the beginning I think we were trying to differentiate us a lot from the other podcasts, like the Amp Hour at the time, and just grew into our own style. Like that's just what happens, right?
Yeah.
So 300 more.
Woo!
300 more episodes.
Yes.
Hopefully.
We'll have Gamal back on 600.
Okay.
Actually, no, we'll have you back. We'll have you back
a
on
deal.
way sooner than that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you guys need anything, I'm always there. I'm, building hardware. So let me know if people need help with hardware.
Yeah. So, are you doing contract work then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do consulting for people. One of my clients is public, and it's pretty cool. It's called Goliath. So that's like a IoT interface kind of startup, and so like I make IoT thingies now. It's pretty great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So there is one thing you can do for me, Gamel.
Yes.
Sign out our podcast.
This was the Macrofab Engineering Podcast, and I was your guest, Chris Gamble, but also like a host because I'm the host of the Amp Hour, and this is also being posted on the Amp Hour. And thank you to our guests, who are also the hosts.
Parker Dillman.
And Stephen Craig.
Later, everyone.
Take it easy.